Coming up on episode 374 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the VW ID Buzz, the Toyota Camry Hybrid, the Toyota Land Cruiser Heritage Edition. VW's adding enhanced hazard alerts. Polestar and Volvo get to use superchargers. Cadillac's got a V-Series version of the Lyriq coming in 2025. The Lucid Gravity is going up for order this week. Hyundai's got a new fuel cell concept. Kia's got their first pickup truck. Rivian's software chief is wrong about buttons. FSD ignores a deer. And the Ferrari Enzo has different sized mirrors. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 374 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abul-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakeland from Car Buzz.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International.
And let's start with Nicole. What have you been driving?
I have been driving the 2025 Toyota Camry, which it sounds like I'm picking on the Camry, but I'm really surprised how much I like this. Like, I just don't find, I never found the Camry to be the most, interesting, exciting car around. I mean, it was fine.
It was sort of there, but it's going to last 1,000 years. It's that thing.
Right?
Like, oh, yeah. Okay.
You're going to have it forever. And it's going to, like I always say, Toyota's, your car doesn't give up on you, you give up on it. You just finally decide 18 years of this is enough. I'm getting something else, Yeah.
I mean, and cars like the Camry, they usually end up going through 3 or 4 owners in their lifespan. And like you said, Robbie, they last about 1,000 years and go about 100 million miles, usually without, aside from having to replace tires and wiper blades and put some washer fluid in there and occasionally change the oil. About all you got to do to them.
Right. Yeah. So they just keep going forever and they're a decent value. They're not the cheapest cars you can buy, but they're not expensive, especially if you get the base trims of any Toyota. In fact, in this one, you can get in, I just had the pricing up and my screen resized itself and now it's gone. The base trim of the Toyota Camry comes in at $28,400. And that's front wheel drive. The base all wheel drive trim is $29,295. That's still pretty affordable for a nice sedan that's going to last you for 100 bazillion miles. I had the XSE with all wheel drive, which is the top trim. It is $36,125, which still, it's the top trim. That's still a really good price. You guys want to take a guess on destination?
Ooh,
$11.95.
$8.95.
$8.95. Sam wins because it's $11.35.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, you're pretty close. Yeah,
right.
You were making it a bargain there, Robbie. I don't know.
I'm trying to hope that some an automaker is just you know what? Let's stop. Let's stop doing this.
They're going to have heard what you said. They're like, that one time in the show, Robbie said it was only $8.95. Let's just do that just to surprise people. So it's a pretty good value. I mean, you're getting a lot of car. You're getting a reliable car in any of those trims. And I feel like that pricing range makes it easy. If you want, if your budget's a little tighter, go for the base trim, solid car. If you have a little bit more money and you want to go for some fancy pants stuff, you can do that. Mine had the most in your face interior I've ever seen in a Toyota. It was cockpit red. Have you guys seen this? It is red.
Oh.
Hello. It glows from inside the car. Just this red glow through the windshield.
Oh,
it is really,
wow.
It is really, It is really bright. But what I kind of liked about it is it's your mild-mannered.
You could do so many murders
sedan.
and not get caught. Because
no one would ever catch you. There's that. That's not where I was going with it. But that it makes this car have some genuine personality. And I appreciate that they give you the option. You don't have to get crazy red. You can get black. You can get real run-of-the-mill average colors. But the fact that they put a color like that on a Camry, that's just fabulous. I love that they did that. And I like how they styled this one. So they made some styling tweaks for 2025. This is nothing dramatic. It's not suddenly as if you won't recognize that this is a Camry or suddenly it looks like some super expensive fancy sports car, but it does look really good. It doesn't look dull. And I feel like the Camry has run the mill, depending on the year. it's either so boring you don't even realize the car is there, or they've gone so overwrought you're like, guys, take something off of that. Like, remove a design element. There's
Settle
too
down,
much.
everyone. Settle down.
Like, settle down in the design department, take away their coffees. This year, I thought they did a really good job. Like, I genuinely love how this looks, especially the grille. Like, that's a good looking car. Did you guys take a look at it? I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I saw it at the reveal last year at LA. And also, the headlights, they've kind of taken on the look from the new Prius with the headlights. I like it.
I think it looks really good. So I appreciate that they've taken, this standard. Everybody has heard of Camry. Everybody knows about Camry, but they made it they didn't make it too crazy, but they really made it look good. I think it looks like a sleeker, sportier car than it is before. The only thing, it doesn't drive like a sportier car. It drives fine. It still drives like a Camry to me.
It's still just a Camry.
It's still just a Camry. It's like,
you want to get from point A to point B for 400,000 miles.
Exactly. Get yourself a Camry. So, and now,
if you factor in the time that you've saved in not, having to get it repaired over 400,000 miles, you will probably get to 400,000 miles faster than certainly, a Lamborghini or a Ferrari.
That's
yes. But it's still a very practical car. And I feel the practical car part of it comes in the engine. So there's no longer V6. It's gone. Say a little sad trombone sound for the loss of the V6. They have a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder hybrid, and you're either getting front wheel drive, which has 225 horsepower, or all wheel drive, which gets a little bump to 232. So not a significant difference. It's just the extra motor on the rear axle to give it all wheel drive. And you get a CVT. It's perfectly fine. It has plenty of get up and go. It's not a slow car. It's just not an especially engaging car. I do feel it drives, truly, I feel like the driving dynamics are a little bit better than they were before. Again, not a dramatic change, but I did feel like it handled a little better, But this is still not a car. If you're a driving enthusiast, I think is the word that I'm going to use, or the phrase I'm going to use, this is not going to be your favorite car. If you want it to look like it's sporty and you don't really care if it is sporty, then it delivers. So overall, I was genuinely impressed with the Camry. I've never been specifically a Camry fan just because it's not a very exciting car, but I think they knocked it out of the park with the style and the features and the design overall. They finally made it look appealing. The drive is fine, but really it's a better Camry in every way, little increments better, but it's still not a sporty sedan, and you will be driving it until, the next 30 years. Feel free. You'll be driving the same car because it's probably going to last that long.
Yeah. Who wants to live forever?
Forever. So yeah, it is what show is that? The Highlander, right?
That is a Highlander. No. Yes.
Highlander.
The Highlander.
He's the Highlander. It's the Highlander of cars.
It's the Highlander. There can be only one, and that's what
there could be only one.
And since Toyota also makes the Highlander,
I know, which is wrong. Oh. Yeah, that's the Highlander of SUVs. This is the Highlander.
Oh, I wish. Did anyone drive a Highlander this week? That would have been a great segue. Darn it! No. Next time. We gotta really start thinking.
Almost.
About
I had the Land Cruiser, but
it's like the fancy Highlander. It's like the Highlander for folks who have who want to be a little bit more bold. It's the bold Highlander.
The bold car.
So
what kind of fuel economy did you get with the Camry?
I didn't check my fuel economy. Sorry, Sam, I did not get it. But it does get. So the trick about this, though, is depending on the trim you get, just in terms of what they say, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different fuel economy figures, all depending on the exact configuration. So I literally looked, I'm like, there's what? So the one that I drove, the combined fuel economy is 44, which is actually, that's the XSE with all-wheel drive. It's actually the worst. That's the worst fuel economy that you will get.
And it's got the biggest wheels and tires on it. So
exactly. So that's the
Mega
worst
wheels.
You can do. The mega wheels. The best you can do is if you go with the LE, which is the base trim. With front wheel drive, it gets 51. With all wheel drive, it gets 50. So even if you're just doing all wheel drive to all wheel drive, from 50 in the LE to down to 44 with the XSE, that's a pretty big difference. It's not going to kill you, but if you're really looking for the commuter car and budget is your priority, go down to that trim if you really want to get the best figures.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that because the relationship between fuel consumption and MPG, it's not a linear relationship. So
right.
For every additional mile per gallon you get, you save a smaller amount of fuel. So once you get past 40 miles per gallon, the incremental savings from an additional mile per gallon or two doesn't make that much difference. So
right.
The total between 44 miles per gallon versus 51 miles per gallon is the fuel savings are not that much.
Right. It's not true. You're still in the territory of getting really good fuel economy and making it easy on your wallet, no matter which of these that you get. I mean, that's the benefits. One of the benefits of driving a hybrid, they give you that great fuel economy. So you're going to be fine in all of them.
In the calculator on fueleconomy.gov, if you get the LE, the 51 mile per gallon LE, your annual fuel cost is estimated to be about $950. If you get the XSE that you have, it's $1,100. So it's $150 a year.
Right. It's not a huge difference, right? Yeah. It's a difference, but it's not a dramatic difference unless you're driving an insane number of miles. It's not going to be a dramatic difference. Hypermiling.
Getting those extra. Even then, it's still linear because there's two of them. They're both going up the same way with your hypermiling. Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Forget that thing I just said. It was a lie.
Well, just for comparison, last year's V6 Camry, the annual fuel cost for that was $1,850 with the V6 because that only got 26 miles per gallon. So you got a huge bump going from that to the new all-wheel drive hybrid. You save $750 a year.
So that's your bigger difference. If you were looking at buying last year's Camry, that's a really good reason not to. It's a really good reason to go with the 25.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Robbie?
Hey, I drove again almost immediately after driving it a few weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Something like that.
Sure. Time doesn't matter anymore. The ID Buzz again. I got the ID Buzz again. I got an email last week. They're, hey, we have the ID Buzz. I mean, it makes sense because they had them here for the test program. They're like, do you want it? And I was like, sure. So I have the 2025 ID Buzz first edition.
With coffee.
Sorry about the noise in the background.
Hi, Russ. Tell Russ we said
hi. They're all saying hi, Russ.
Tell Russ I was driving the 2025 ID Buzz first edition for motion. This is the all-wheel drive version of the ID Buzz. Right off the bat, during the drive program, I actually prefer the rear-wheel drive version. It's a little bit lighter, feels a little bit more nimble. I think we've talked about this before. If you get a rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive vehicle, if you live somewhere where it snows, throw some snow tires on there, boom, you're done. That's it. I have the all-wheel drive version. It's nice. I've been driving it around. This, and I will say this is not hyperbole. This is the car that has not garnished. It has not taken my pay. The most attention.
Hasn't taken your pay yet.
Yet soon. Every time I park the car and I walk out of wherever, there are people standing around it. And then I'm a nice person, so I I write about cars, blah blah blah, and I open the doors, I let them look at it, let them take pictures, do whatever they want. I don't care, as long as they don't spend like 30 minutes. I'm pretty. If you see me on the streets with a car that's not my own, I'm more than happy to let you look inside. I don't care. Everywhere. So yesterday I went to the store twice. Both times I came out, there's people. I went to pick up lunch, came out, there's people. People have honked at me. They are giving me the thumbs up. I've had two neighbors come over and ask me for a ride in the vehicle. I had band practice yesterday, and we have a show coming up, And that no one cared. All they cared about was after band practice, I was going to let them all go look at the ID Buzz. I'm like, all right, well, we played all the songs. Let's go look at the ID Buzz. And everyone's like, yay! And like one person who didn't realize I was bringing it was like, oh. So yeah, it is a magnet. I have the yellow and white version, the one they've sort of been showing off for 1,000 years. That yellow and white color.
Yeah, just I also had an ID Buzz just for like a day and a half, so I could get some seat time in it before we had to cast our votes for NACTOY. And same thing, everybody wanted to look at it.
I came out of the day before yesterday. I came out of the store and there was a woman and a young child, which I'm assuming was hers. I don't know.
You never know.
You never know. What is a possession is 9/10 of the law. I don't know what that means. I've never understood what it means, but there she had it, so it must be hers. We were walking out of the store, and I was walking out of the store, and she's like, "What is?" She didn't even know what it was. She didn't know it was a Volkswagen. She didn't know it was an EV. She didn't know. She's like, I've never seen a car like this. This is amazing. This is so cool. What is this? And I explained it to her. And of course, the child was like, it's electric. So because children are the future. So yeah, they were very excited. Having said all that, I think when we heard the news, it was $60,000 and the range was like I think this one's 230. Yeah, it's 231 miles according to the EPA. I was like, about the Buzz. Now, having driven it, we have another like year and a half on the Ioniq 5, and I'm hoping within that time that the Buzz will be available for leasing. Maybe they'll have a true base level versus they have a mid trim level which they're saying is the base level, and it's starting at $60,000, which is a lot of money for a car that according to the EPA doesn't get 250 miles of range. Yeah, I really like it. There's so much room for activities for all the friends of the movie Step Brothers. You could take the seats out. But there is some weirdness. For example, there's a ton of USB-C ports, but 4 of them are in the doors, which my wife had one plugged in the door. I'm like, hey, maybe don't open the door while you have your phone.
Oh, geez. I didn't even think of that. Oh, my gosh. Your phone goes flying into a parking lot.
Unless you have one of those really long USB cables. Because I typically buy
I do have some 3-meter USB.
Yeah, cables. I have some pretty long ones that I use because, you travel or you want to be able to plug it in here and have things charged over there or whatever. But if you just have the short ones like Apple gives you that are just regular length, I just feel like your phones are just going to be being chucked out into parking lots or slowly being pulled out of someone's lap by the sliding side.
Everybody just slides away.
Just slides. So there's that. The rear, when you put it in reverse, the rear camera quality just doesn't seem that great. For a car that starts at $60,000. And here's the thing: you're paying for a giant battery when you're paying that $60,000. You're paying for a giant battery and a mid-tier vehicle is what you're paying for with that $60,000. It's a 91 kilowatt hour battery. 86 kilowatts of it, kilowatt hours of it is usable. And so it's a big battery for a big vehicle. And it's not that the drag coefficient is horrible. It's just that there's just so much mass. There's so much area for, so it might have I think it's 0.29. So it's not like, it's not like it's a block, but it's also, you have to think about
it's tall and it's wide.
It's tall and it's wide. You're driving a tall, wide vehicle. So yeah, so you kind of give up that. But, and I think Sam I know Sam will actually back me up on this. It gets better fuel economy than what the EPA says. But here's the weird rub on my for my okay. Well, Sam, tell us what you got.
I averaged over the course of almost 100 miles of driving, 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour, which works out to if you work it out based on the battery size and what was left there, it should be able to get somewhere around 270 to 275 miles on a charge.
Okay, so it's not bad.
Yeah, which is, far higher than, the 235,
It's a lot better than 234.
234, I think,
Mhm.
yeah, for the rear wheel drive. So I have the all wheel drive version, 231. I'm assuming because I live in my road that I test on has a lot of rolling hills because it's California and it's just nothing but hills. And it's always windy or whatever. So, but here's the weird thing is that I got during my 100-mile range run that I do with every car, 50 miles on the freeway at 70 miles an hour with the cruise control on, and 70 miles an hour or 70 degrees for the climate control. Um, the and then 50 miles, like a little less than half of it on back roads, like winding up and downy back roads, and then a lot of like just driving through like not residential areas, but like just regular suburban areas and with a little bit of residential. It averaged 3 miles per kilowatt hour, which is really good. And so that breaks down to 258 miles. But the state of charge, I lost 41%, and that that gives me 243 miles of range. So I'm just like, what? Wait, what? So which computer is wrong? So I have to email. So tomorrow I have to email Volkswagen and ask them where this discrepancy comes from, because you can look at the miles, and according to the miles, when you have your state of charge next to it, it tells you typically in an EV how many miles you have left. And according to that, I had only driven like 80 miles. But you have to realize that is all relative based on who had the car before me and how they were driving it. And there's a lot of like sort of that. Like for example, right now my Ioniq 5 thinks we will only get 200 miles of range, and that's because I was driving back up from Southern California against the 35 mile an hour like headwind at 85 miles an hour. So now whenever I get into my Ioniq 5 that has 300 miles of range, it says I only have 100 miles. But when I'm driving around town, it's been at like 179 for like 3 days. Because
Yeah, it takes a while to adjust and update the average.
Yeah.
So it's not. I'm not sure about the Ioniq. I mean, some cars, it'll have an average based on since the last time you reset it. In other cases, it might be like over the last 500 miles or 1,000 miles. So it varies from company to
car
company.
to car, yeah. So if you base it on the last like 1,000 miles, like 800 of those were driven very quickly on the interstate, and in one way it had tailwind, but on the other way, and still I'm doing 85, which is not great for traveling. So it's a weird, like, is the state of charge a little bit off? Because the Volkswagen Group typically underreports their numbers. They did it with the Porsche Taycan, they did it with the Audi e-tron, they did it with the ID4. They say, oh, it's this number. And the crazy thing was when I drove the Taycan before the EPA number came out, and we drove it like crate because it was a Taycan, and we were driving up Angeles Crest, we were driving on the freeway, and then they came out with this number. I'm like, well, that's wrong. And so I think if you're just driving around town with this vehicle, you're going to get 260, I think. No problem. 250, 260, no big deal. Just your average sort of EV. It's a big EV. It's efficiency when you have something that large with a giant battery isn't going to be great versus something that's smaller. That said, I'm curious if the state of charge reporting is also sort of like underreporting what you're going to get. Again, it's like the Disneyland effect. You go and you stand in line. It says 45 minutes from here, but the reality, it's only like 35 minutes. It's just so you feel like if it takes 45 minutes, then you're fine. But most times it's only going to take 35, and then you're sort of delighted. You're delighted that it took less time than what it was. And so I think that's what Volkswagen's been doing with their EVs. With range, with their EPA numbers, and I'm curious if they're doing the same thing with their state of charge reporting. And again, I have to email Volkswagen tomorrow and just sort of figure out like what is happening with this discrepancy, because it's a 15-mile discrepancy based on my test. Because I pulled out, I'm like, oh, cool, it got 3 miles per kilowatt hour, and then I'm looking at the state of charge, and I'm like, wait, hold on, that seems a little so. That said, it charges, it's 400 volt architecture, but they pushed it so it charges at 200 kilowatts. I have to go do that test later today. Yeah, no, you know what? I really enjoy it. I really like it. I like the vehicle a lot. All this information that I'm talking about, the big nerdy stuff, will be in Wired. I'm write it for them. But yeah, no, everyone that comes up to me is like, what do you think? I'm like, you know what? And I tell them the story about how we were excited, then we were less excited, and now that I've driven it, we're excited again. And I feel like that's, and I know that Volkswagen's only, they're only going to make it in one factory in Hanover, Germany. Its capacity of 100,000 globally. So every ID Buzz is built in the same factory. They can only build 100,000 a year. And people are like, well, why don't you build them here? Because everyone's going to want them. But A, Volkswagen's not doing great financially as a company as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And B, I think they got burned by the Beetle.
Yeah.
There was a ton of people wanted the Beetle when it came out. And then as soon as that enthusiasm, all the enthusiasts who wanted it bought it, then sales just cratered. And they were just like, oh no. So I think they're actually, I know it's a pain, but they're actually being smart about it. If I would like them to build it here in the United States. I would like them to be able to meet capacity for the first 2 years or meet demand. But the reality is, for Volkswagen, this is actually the smartest thing they could be doing.
No, I totally agree. Just to continue on, what you said, I'm just looking, I took a picture of the screen and the odometer and everything. After 97 miles of driving, starting from 100% state of charge, I was at 65% and it was still showing 184 miles left. And when I was driving it, during the day that, the temperatures were nice, it was like 68, 69, 70 degrees. When I first went out in the morning for a longer drive, it was probably closer to about 50. So I did have the heat on for a little bit, until things warmed up a little bit. But I wasn't, it wasn't really hot. I wasn't cranking the air conditioning. So obviously that will pull down your numbers a little bit. The one I had was in the Mahi green with the white top.
I love that color.
And one of the things I love about this, one of the things I love about this car is they have a good selection of really fun colors. You've got that yellow, what do they call it? Pomelo yellow metallic.
My wife said it looked
candy white top.
My wife who works in a hospital,
green,
she said the
energetic orange.
She said what? It looks like bile?
The yellow looks like bile.
Oh my gosh, ruin it for everyone, Robbie's wife. Okay.
But the green and the orange are just so great.
And there's also the cherry red and the blue, the Cabana blue, I think is also an awesome color. I love that color as well. And then there's the usual black and silver and gray. So, but if you're going to buy one of these, don't get those colors.
No, I don't think it should
get
be
a fun color. Yeah.
I
no
like
buying a boring color.
I like that Volkswagen just went all in understanding like what this vehicle is, because I think there's been a lot of like sort of pushback on Volkswagen over the past few years that they're not fun. Like Volkswagen doesn't make fun cars. The GTI is fun. The Volkswagen R is the Golf R. They sort of neutered that vehicle, and you're like, and when people are like, "Oh, I'm thinking about get the R, I'll get the GTI." You're gonna like a lot. You're gonna have more fun in that vehicle. And I think this brings all that back.
Yeah. The Golf R is faster, but you'll have more fun in the GTI.
Yes.
This car, this is not a sports car, but it is fun. And I was surprised at how roomy it feels inside. It's actually bigger than I expected it to be. And I've seen this thing on the auto show stand for the last couple of years. But just, when I actually climbed in and realized how big this thing is inside, it was really, really impressive. It's better than any SUV.
Oh yeah.
In terms, if you need an electric 3-row vehicle, this thing is awesome. And then, the seats folding down, the one I had was the Pro S Plus trim level. So not the base level, but one level up from that. And the third row seats and the second row seats fold down, and there's a shelf in the back, in the cargo area with a couple of pull-out container, compartment containers that you can fold those up and put them away if you want, if you're not going to use them. But with that shelf, and then the back seat, the second and third row seats folded flat. There is a gap between the second and third row seats when they're folded, but it's a flat surface all the way from the back. And so you could put if you wanted to use this thing to camp in, you could put some boards across there, and sleep it's long enough that you could sleep in the back of this thing. It's really impressive. The only real downsides, aside from the price, because it's not inexpensive, but just think, a year or two from now, you'll probably be able to get a used one of these for like 40 grand.
Yeah.
Or less,
no,
maybe.
It's so I measured the interior because someone on Blue Sky was like, hey, can you put a plank of a plywood in, some plywood in there? And the plywood is 5x5 or 8x4 is usually like plywood sizes, and it is exactly 8x4.
Yeah.
So you can put a piece of plywood. I would probably cut a 1/4 inch off the 4 because it's exactly 4 feet wide. But
well,
like if you put all those things down and you threw an
4x8 is always slightly less anyway.
Yeah, if you threw an air mattress in there, you wouldn't have to put anything down. And I was trying. All of our air mattresses are queen size. I was like, boo, because
So, but as cool as it is, do you think though? You're talking about how the VW Beetle went. That people bought it when it was like everybody who wanted one initially bought it, and then it was like, pooh, sales just tanked. Do you think that as cool as the ID Buzz is? Because I had the same reaction from people, Robbie. I drove it for a very short time at NACS toy testing, and like I paused at traffic lights and people are frantically waving like, hey, and like, hi, I see you. Like everybody was excited about this car. But do you think that excitement is going to carry past the initial excitement? Do you think does it have legs? Can it keep going?
I you know what? I actually think it does, just because of the utility of it.
Yeah.
I think there's everyone's very excited. Of course, excitement doesn't mean you have $60,000 for a vehicle.
Right.
But I think the utility of it and the fact that it's a minivan that, you're sitting higher than you would in a regular minivan. Like getting in and out, it's not like sliding straight in like you would in a minivan. You got to step up to get into it. But I think it's a minivan that everyone's like, woo.
It's a cool minivan.
Wait, how's that go again?
Woo.
Okay,
it's a minivan with that factor. I think that is what it's sort of a selling point. Like everyone, like the drummer in one of my bands was like, I'm taking that third row out, and I'm taking this other stuff out, and I'm never putting it back in. I'm only using the second row. And like Sam was saying, I'm 6'3". I sat in all 3 rows, no problems. Plenty of space, like no matter what row you're sitting in. So if you have friends and you all want to go on a trip, you can do it with this.
Well, and as you're saying it's a minivan, because it is basically a minivan. The thing is, I always said I would never have a minivan when my kids were little. I never did. I was like, I can't do it. I can't be the soccer mom with the minivan, but I would have bought this. Like, as you're saying, I'm thinking, exactly. No, I would have bought this.
That's why
this doesn't count. It's not a minivan. It's a cool minivan.
Yeah. That's why I think it will, sales will hold up. I mean, the minivan market's a lot smaller than it was 20 years ago, but it's still 500,000 vehicles a year.
Right.
And, I mean, if VW can move, 20, 30,000 of these a year in the US, I think they're doing great, and I think that is a sustainable number. And that's why I think, what Robbie said about, keeping, not trying to overbuild, not put in too much capacity. I think, I think 100,000 a year globally is probably a number that can be sustained for quite a while. And I think it's cool. Especially in rear drive form. I haven't driven the all wheel drive, but the rear drive one, it's got enough power. 288 horsepower, I think. And it's not a sports car, but it gets out of its own way. It handles reasonably well, especially for something this size. And the only 2 real complaints I have about it, besides the price, are the window switches. It's got those silly
button.
Window switches on the driver's
turns off after a while. So like you don't you click it, because I was testing it, and then it turns off, and it defaults back to the front windows. So I thought I was closing the front windows, and I was closing the rear windows. And I was closing the front windows because I didn't get back to it. I'm like, man, that's annoying.
And then the infotainment, it's got the touch sliders across the bottom, that little shelf under the infotainment screen, for volume and temperature control.
Those are, the volume, because I'm constantly adjusting volume, and it's just annoying.
Yeah.
And then they have it on the steering wheel, but it's the same setup. It's there like to touch, and you're just like, oh my god. And then when you want to advance a song, they have on the right side of the steering wheel is the advance and go back, and it's the same sort of thing. And you're like, is this going to work? It's not great.
But so would you buy it if you're going to buy? You're in the market. Would you buy it, Robbie? You said you're already looking for one.
If they have a nice lease deal in a couple of years when they're available after we're out of the Ioniq 5, then yeah, we'll probably get one.
What about you, Sam?
I mean, I have different needs from Robbie. I don't have 16 bands. And
if you have a lot of bands and big dogs.
I only have 2 smaller dogs. So I don't need something this big. But, if I was, if it was still, when my kids were younger, if I had young kids, I would absolutely consider this.
So here's the thing.
On the list.
I have no need for a car that big. My kids are grown. I don't have a dog. The daughter is taking Doggo with her off to Wisconsin, and the dog was only the size of a small cat anyway. I would still buy this. I'd still be tempted to buy this just because it's so cute. And it's so fun. I think I'm sometimes the most impractical car buyer. It's like, Nicole, you don't have any kids at home. You don't have a large dog. Would you like a large SUV? Yes, please. Like, I would love this. I would totally buy this just because it's fun.
Visibility out of this thing is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, because you're right on front of it. So you're like, I can pull up really close, which, if you get a big truck now, I'm like, I can't. I'm like, I hope there's nothing there.
One thing, though, the visibility is great. But, did anybody, look at the dash, because the dash, the front, the windshield's huge, right? Mm-hmm. And it goes way, way down. You can't reach. It sounds like such a silly complaint, but where the windshield meets the dashboard is so far down you can't reach it. Not for you with your monster arms, Robbie, but for every other human. So I can totally see. I'm the person who's going to get in the car and have something in my hand, toss it on the dashboard. It's going to slide all the way down. Yeah, it's going to be like, how the crack on either side of the seat, like where it goes between the seat and the center console into that purgatory you can never get again. I feel like there's a purgatory at the very front.
Display all the papers and the center console in the front of your that's where they live now.
The center console is removable. So you can drop stuff on the center console instead of putting it on the dash. So there's that. But even if you miss and you drop it down in between the center console and the seat, you just reach down in the front, pull the thing, the whole thing comes up.
Not in that one necessarily. I mean, in generally speaking, in cars, that little gap. I'm going to need one of those. Those little things that old people use to pick stuff up because it can't reach down to the floor. The little grabber things. Yeah. I need to have a grabber thing so I can reach to the front of the windshield and grab the thing I inevitably would throw on there and not be able to reach.
When my wife climbed into this thing with me, she was on the passenger side, and there's this nice big pocket in the dashboard above, so the glove box is underneath, and then there's this nice little storage shelf in there. And she said, is this for wireless charging pad? And I said, no. And I pointed, look over here, just behind, in front of the steering wheel to the left of the infotainment screen is a slot. So when you put your phone in there, and it's got rubber in there, so it holds your phone in place, and that's the wireless charging slot. So you don't have to worry about your phone sliding off the charger when you go around corners and things like that. So I thought that was really nicely executed as well. So there's I think most everything on here I thought was really well executed. Like I said, apart from the infotainment and the window switches on the driver's door, everything else I was really content with. It worked great. One cool detail that I noticed when I was taking pictures of it, and I tried to open the sliding doors from outside, and I couldn't get it to open. I couldn't figure out why. On the down below the infotainment screen, underneath the dash, there's 3 buttons there to open and close the sliding doors. Two are to open and close the sliding doors. The middle one in between is to actually disable that. So, if you've got kids in the back and you don't want them accidentally opening the door, you just press that button. They can't open that's basically your child lock.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
And also, your friends won't lose their phone when they open the door because the cable is attached to the.
Exactly. Yeah. If they plug something in, then you just hit that so they don't accidentally, lose their stuff. So, no, I really like this. It's a lot better than I expected it to be, and it got I gave it a bunch of votes for Nactoy for utility.
Do you think it'll get into the final three? What's your gut instinct, Sam?
I have a feeling it's going to make it into the finals. Yeah.
What about you, Robbie? Do you think it'll make it into our final three for a North American car of the year?
Yeah. Well, for World Car, I'm not part of.
And World Car, is it up for World Car too?
I don't know. I haven't gotten my eligible vehicles list yet. So like I have the fleet managers like on standby because I can't make it to this year's drive program. So I'm like, as soon as I get the list, I'll set. I'll
see. I haven't looked at that list. I was so like NACTOY because the votes are due. They were just due. The first, they were due already. So it was like I had that on the brain. I'm like, okay, now I can shift gears to the next one for a little while. But I haven't looked at World Car yet.
Yeah.
So
I think it'll. Yeah. I enough people like at the drive program were just like we're pleasantly surprised because I think people who drove it in Sweden liked it. But then we're like, oh, this is going to be bigger. It's going to be this much money. It's going to have this much range. It's going to this and this. And everyone's just like, eh. And then they drove it. They're like, hey.
I feel like everyone was afraid to like it too much. It was like, well, it looks really cute. And it looks like it should be fun. It looks like she should all these, but I'm just going to get myself really excited for disappointment, right? Everyone's like, I'm just going to be disappointed. I'm not going to let myself get excited. And then we all got it. We're like, hey, not a disappointment. Awesome.
When I took it out for a drive, I stopped off at Pickerel Lake and pulled into the parking lot there. And it was an old VW Vanagon Westphalia. Parked there, so I parked next to it and took a picture of it next to the Westphalia.
That's awesome.
That's what I dropped in the chat there. So
that was cool. That's a cool photo.
Yeah, I don't think VW is planning on making a camper version of this, but in fact, I think they've said they're not planning to.
I thought they said they're not, but that doesn't mean that they can say that all they want. Somebody's going to do it. Yeah. Somebody's going to be like, we can convert that for you. Give us your money. And legions of people are going to be like, take my money, please. And they'll have it.
Yeah, the amount of the fact that most people can DIY stuff thanks to like scanning stuff with your phone and getting pretty good data about size, width, etc., and 3D printing and you can pick up all these tools for relatively people are going to go nuts on this vehicle. They're going to do a lot of stuff
and the other thing is given how much bigger this is than the old school Type 2 campers, the old microbuses and Vanagons, I'm not sure you even actually need the pop top. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to stand up, but this thing's got a lot more room inside than the old air cooled buses.
Yeah,
you with your logic, Sam. It's not that you need it; it's that you want it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing, my wife was asking me, if they're actually calling this a minivan, and I honestly wasn't sure. And when I got home, I looked at the press kit. They never refer to it as a minivan. In the press release, they refer to it as inspired by the microbus. And
it's a bus.
Yeah, well, and if you actually go and look on the consumer site, how they have the categories of all models. They got SUVs, they got sedans, they got compacts, and then the final category is bus. So they actually list it as a bus on the VW.com consumer site.
Because nobody wants to have a minivan. It's just like what's the Kia? They call it a multi-purpose vehicle.
Yeah, MPV.
The Carnival. Yeah, it's an MPV, like a minivan. But no one builds those anymore.
No one wants a minivan. So everyone wants the Carnival.
The Carnival. I mean, that sounds fancy.
I don't even tell people it's a minivan. Just say it's a Carnival. It's an SUV with a sliding door, and people are like, "Oh!" If you just tell them that, then they're like, "Oh, all right."
The rear drive one that I had came to a grand total of $66,040.
How much was it?
$66,040.
$66,000.
That included $995 for the Mahi green and candy white exterior. That was
mine was because it's the first edition all-wheel drive, $71,545.
And I don't have what I drove because I drove like 4 of them at NACTOY. I know the first edition was on that list, but they had 4 of them there, and I drove them all. So
drive them all. It did have mine. Mine did have the Dune like interior with.
Yeah, I had the Dune as well.
That's a bad interior because it's just eventual gray. I mean, it looks cool, but like
eventual gray.
You have kids or dogs.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would never. It looks good, at least new. It looks. I really like the look, but I would never get this interior if I had kids. It would be a terrible, terrible idea.
It's a bad.
The only interior for kids is black. You just want it to be black because they'll make it black eventually. So just go start there.
But VW's leatherette interior materials are actually quite durable. We had it on our Jetta. And it looks good. I mean, it's not like high end, super high end leather, but it feels enough like leather, and it's durable and it's easy to clean. So it's I think it's a good material for the interior. Just don't get it in the white.
Unless
cool.
I mean, if you're a very clean person, which I am not, to be honest, get the white one. Well, people get white interiors all the time. God bless you for, I don't know, not being filthy.
Well, I mean, even if you were clean, if you got dogs, if you got kids, there's no way around that. Just don't do it.
You and your filthy animals.
So the ID Buzz, I like it. I like it a lot.
It's fantastic.
All right. And like I said, I only had the Buzz for like a day and a half, just for some quick seat time, because I was out of the country during the NAC Toy drive, so I didn't get a chance to drive it then. And I wanted to try it out before we voted. But now that the other car I had scheduled for the week was the Toyota Land Cruiser, and I had the not the base Land Cruiser, which I think they call it the 1958, but it's the Land Cruiser, so it's just Land Cruiser, and it was the with the heritage paint, the smoky, what they call it, smoky blue, with gray top, and I like the look of the new Land Cruiser. I actually prefer the front end of the base model with the round headlights instead of the rectangular headlights that are on all the other trim levels. It drives surprisingly well. The one that I had, it has locking center and rear differentials. It's got four-wheel, two-stage transfer case. So it's got 4 high and 4 low. It's 4-wheel drive only. There's no rear wheel drive Land Cruisers available. It's got all the usual stuff you got, like that you want on modern off-roaders, like hill descent control and all those things. But the one that I had, because it was not, I forget, it wasn't a TRD Pro or anything like that. I forget the trim levels they have on it. But this was the Land Cruiser for people that are not actually going to go off road. Despite having all the good hardware,
accurate,
it has the wrong tires, because these are not all terrain tires. They're all season tires. They're Dunlop Grand Trek tires. You would not want to go off road with this, because you will get stuck. 20-inch wheels. The 20-inch wheels look nice, but again, enough sidewall, plenty of sidewall for on-road driving, but it's not really what you want for an off-roader. So there's other, or if you're going to get something like this, if you are going to take it off-road, the first thing you want to do is take it, go on Tire Rack and order some different wheels and tires, or take it to a tire shop and get some different wheels and tires, because these would be, you're not getting very far on these tires. Let's see. So it's the Land Cruiser 1958, and then the Land Cruiser. And I had the Heritage Blue with gray top, which is a good look. I like the look, but the 20-inch wheels, not a good choice. It does have skid plates and stuff on the bottom. It's got a front sway bar disconnect. So this is the weird thing. It's got most of the hardware that you want for off-roading, but just the wrong wheels and tires, which kind of of pointless. It's like you can show off all this stuff, but why, why bother?
Just what are you doing?
It's a giant fake out.
It's a trick.
It had the Land Cruiser Premium package that has a 14-speaker JBL audio system that sounds good. The current generation Toyota infotainment system is overall really good. The voice actually recognized me. The voice recognition recognized me and responded. It's got the premium package. You get things like digital rearview mirror, heads-up display, lane change assist, and front cross traffic alert, and all kinds of other good stuff. The fuel economy was not great. This has all the Land Cruisers this year have a 2.4 liter turbo hybrid powertrain. So it's the same powertrain that you get in the Tacoma. It's the up level powertrain in the Tacoma. So the Tacoma you can get with just the 2.4 liter turbo, or that with a hybrid. So it's got plenty of power. I think it's like 335 horsepower and 460 odd pounds-feet of torque. So there's plenty of performance. That's not an issue. Fuel economy, though, like I said, was not great. It's rated at 23 combined, 22 city, 25 highway. So this, Toyota's truck hybrid powertrains, truck and SUV hybrid powertrains are really tuned more for performance than they are for fuel economy, unlike what you get in the cars and crossovers, which are really tuned more for fuel economy than performance. So this had plenty of performance. EPA is 23. I got just over 20 miles per gallon with it. In similar mixed driving to what I did with the ID Buzz, driving on similar roads. So not spectacular fuel economy. Certainly a lot better than the older Land Cruisers with V8 engines and even older ones with big inline 6-cylinder engines, which you might get 10 or 12. So it's certainly a big improvement on the old Land Cruisers, but still, this don't buy this, expecting to get great fuel economy just because it's got a hybrid powertrain. In fact, they don't even really emphasize it that much. This is the iForce Max is what they call it, is the powertrain on this.
Yeah, Force and Max don't really like, I'm going to save some money on gas.
Yeah.
It's a weird choice. It's like Max. Doesn't that mean like worse fuel economy, like maximum gas use?
Well, it's Max. It's iForce Max, so it's maximum force, maximum performance.
I don't know that helps me at all.
It's worth a shot. So the Land Cruisers are not inexpensive, never have been, although they're a lot less than the old generation Land Cruisers were. The 1958 starts at $56,450. The Land Cruiser, like the one I had, or just Land Cruiser, starts at $62,450. The one that I drove with that premium pack, $1,240 for the alloy, the 20-inch wheels, $350 for the two-tone roof, which I think is worth it. And some mats and the sort of other stuff. Grand total came to $70,589. Yeah, not inexpensive.
Nope.
You want to take a guess at the destination charge?
Ooh,
$1,495.
Oh, I was going to say 1,500. Okay. Hold on. 1,600. I'm just going to go a little bit higher.
Nicole got it again. $1,395.
Oh.
So, this year, the Land Cruiser is the same platform. It's basically the same vehicle as the new Lexus GX. The main difference in the two, besides having some fancier stuff in the Lexus, different front fascia, is you get a turbo 4-cylinder in the Land Cruiser. If you get the Lexus, you get a twin turbo V6, the 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 that also comes in the LX, as well as the Toyota Sequoia and the Tundra. So quite a bit more power, and it's actually not that much more expensive. The LX I think starts about $65,000. So if you're going to spend $70,000 on the Toyota, you might want to just spend a little more and get the Lexus instead.
Yeah.
They do have the LX or the GX Overtrail, which is much more off-road oriented. Actually has all-terrain tires and stuff like that. So that I think this is one of the rare cases when I would suggest, you might actually just want to spend the extra money and get the Lexus instead.
Yeah.
I might in this case. It's funny. I was just talking about the Camry and how close that comes. Like whether Lexus is the better choice over Toyota, because sometimes in the top trims of Toyotas, they come really close to Lexus.
Yeah.
This is not one of those cases. I'm like, I might go with a Lexus.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all of Toyota's off-roaders have, in the last couple of years, have gotten quite a bit more. They've redesigned them all. So you've got new 4Runner, new Tacoma, new Land Cruisers, and the off-road versions of them have gotten quite a bit more expensive. And when you compare them to some of the other stuff, that you might consider competitors, like, you compare this to, say, a Bronco or a Wrangler or even a Defender, Land Rover Defender, it's not necessarily a great value. And, for the extra luxury stuff that you get on the Lexus, and as well as the extra power, might be worth just stepping up to that one instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. That's it for what we drove. So let's get into some of the stories of the week. One quick VW one. They made an interesting announcement this week that they are partnering with Emergency Safety Solutions, ESS, on model year 2024 and 2025 VW vehicles that have a connectivity subscription. They're adding what they call help alerts, the hazard enhanced location protocol and road awareness collision avoidance alerts. So ESS has also been working with another company called Haas Alerts, and I'm not sure if Haas is involved in this. They're not mentioned in the press release. Last year, Stellantis added a feature on their vehicles with Uconnect 5. Haas Alerts has, for several years, has been offering transponders that they install in emergency vehicles, like ambulances, fire trucks, police vehicles, that will send out information about where the vehicle is, what speed it's going, what direction it's going. And that gets sent to the cloud and then transmitted down to vehicles from manufacturers that have this set up in there, so that you'll get an alert on your screen if there's an ambulance or some other emergency vehicle approaching you, and also tell you which direction it's coming from. And so they have it looks like they have this now in new VWs. As well as the other thing is the VW vehicles. If you get stuck on the side of the road, if you're stalled or your vehicle's broken down, it will also send out an alert to the cloud that gets transmitted to other VW vehicles, so that they'll to provide alert that, hey, there's a stalled vehicle in the area, because that's one of the things that that often leads to accidents is hitting a vehicle that's disabled on the side of the road. One of the other things that ESS was actually at the Chicago Auto Show this year, and I spoke with their CEO, and he had they were announcing an interesting feature that they've developed that has been implemented by Tesla. Actually, it was the first automaker to do it. And I'm not sure if VW is doing it. I reached out to VW to ask, and they haven't gotten back to me yet on this. But one of the things that ESS has developed is based on some research they did. They found that for the hazard lights, if the flashing rate of your hazard lights actually has a big impact on how much other drivers notice it.
Oh,
So if you're So, typically hazard lights flash at about 1 to 2 hertz, so 1 or 2 times per second. They found that if you increase that to about 4 to 5 times per second, it becomes much more noticeable to other drivers.
Oh.
And I don't know if VW has incorporated this feature or not from ESS, because it's something you can just do in software. It's it doesn't require any additional hardware.
Sam, would they be allowed to do that with all the redonkulous rules that we have in the
Yes.
US about exactly how that would be okay?
Yes.
Do that?
Are we allowed
legal.
to make things safer?
Like, are we allowed? Because sometimes we aren't allowed to make things safer.
Yeah, like headlights. Let's just talk. That's a whole other.
Well, I'm just thinking about. I remember seeing that Audi in Europe has the capability in their vehicles. They have like the taillights will show like a little hazard light, like a triangle.
Yep.
When it's a hazard, but we can't do that here. Like
Right.
that's illegal. And I was like, wait, is this legal or is this illegal? What they are proposing with the speed of the lights? But that's cool. Something we can do. Go us.
Yeah, the flashing rate of the hazards is not something that is mandated, apparently.
Okay.
So they are allowed to do that. I don't know if VW is doing that here. Like I said, I sent them an email to ask, and they were going to forward it on to the PR person was going to forward it on to somebody, and I haven't gotten a response back. So I don't know if they're doing it. Hopefully they are, because anything like that that helps reduce crashes, especially crashes with stationary vehicles, would be better. But it's a small step in the right direction.
I'm wondering, I was reading through that press release and I've read it 3 times. I know this is Volkswagen. Did it say somewhere, have you seen, Sam, if there's other companies that are part of this right now? Is it just Volkswagen to Volkswagen communication at the moment?
I don't know. Again, I
couldn't
asked.
see that looking at that. Okay.
Yeah, it was not clear. There was a lot of ambiguity in the press release. So I asked.
So it could be
I don't know.
those things that maybe, like a Volkswagen, I wonder, how people start to introduce these things and things are like company specific. You wonder if one's going to latch on and suddenly because that's what would be the ideal thing, right? You don't want just Volkswagen do it. You want Volkswagen and Stellantis and Mercedes and everybody else doing it. Then you're all talking to each other. That would be actually really cool.
It would be. And hopefully that's what they're doing, but we don't know.
That would be neat. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Real nice. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. This past week, Volvo and Polestar finally got Supercharger access. So if you have an electric Polestar or Volvo vehicle, you will soon be able to get adapters from Volvo and Polestar. They haven't indicated, if they're going to be charging for these adapters or not. But once you get an adapter,
$310.
oh, is it?
No, wait, no,
Is it 310?
I'm sorry, 230. Sorry, that's Canadian. It's 310. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
200.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
230.
I missed that.
And they'll be shipping in November 18th. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And hopefully, they'll actually be able to get enough of these, which some other automakers have not been able to get enough. They haven't
A little bit of a
been able to
struggle.
fulfill all their orders. In fact, for Ford, they announced this past week that they were going to start shipping because since they launched Supercharger access in March or something, they have been shipping an adapter that is manufactured by Tesla, and they actually recalled some of those because of some issues with a batch of those. But this week they announced that they are now also shipping adapters made by Lectron.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good for Lectron too, because I know that people have been like, hey, these actually work pretty well. But, to me, I've been like, maybe get it from the OEM. And so when you get the OEM stamp of approval, that's nice.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can buy those Lectron adapters directly from Lectron, or you can get them on Amazon. And if you order them through Ford, you actually pay slightly more for them. I think from Lectron they're like $250. If you get them from Ford, they're going to be $300. But they will have the Ford logo on there.
I was just going to say, is that because you get a Ford logo?
Just buy a 50-cent Ford sticker or a $1 Ford sticker, and $251, you have the same thing.
Exactly.
The exact same thing. And $49 left over for coffee or something.
Or candy or burritos or cookies or a bunch of pizzas.
Cookies, definitely cookies.
Pizzas and cookies. Just flat foods.
So now, hopefully, the Supercharger stations will actually, keep working. Apparently there's some reports that a bunch of the Supercharger stations that got updated with Magic Docks, and I don't know if my local one here has because I haven't had a chance to try it. Tesla has turned off the Magic Dock functionality on those.
What? Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
That's so weird.
Yeah, well, it's possible. If Ford is recalling some of their adapters, the adapters are basically the same thing that you get in the Magic Dock. It's essentially the same adapter. It's possible that maybe there was a quality problem with some of those adapters, and some of the Magic Docks. Yeah, some of the Magic Docks may have the same adapter, and so they've got to replace those first, and that may be why they're turning it off.
Maybe people are figuring out how to steal the adapter.
Well, that's possible too. You never know.
Another possibility.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Cadillac announced their first V Series EV. The Lyriq-V is coming next year. No details. All they released was they said, "Yep, they're celebrating 20th anniversary of the V Series. First electric V is coming as the Lyriq next year," and gave 2 photos and no other information.
There's literally nothing in this press release. We're going to build a car. Okay, thanks, bye. There's nothing in here. I'm reading it. I'm scrolling. I'm like, wait, did I just miss it? Nope. It's
Read it
3
again.
Paragraphs.
No.
Read
it again.
No, I read all 3 paragraphs. Still not there.
Yep. Well, the current all-wheel drive Lyriq has 500 horsepower. So my guess is that the Lyriq-V will have somewhere between 557 and 615 horsepower, because 557 is the number for the Blazer EV SS.
Okay.
Which is the same platform, and 615 is another number that I've heard this week that I can't talk about yet. That would also fit in here. So it'll probably be somewhere in that range between 550 and 615 horsepower.
Well, cool. You have more information in the press release, Sam.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Finally, Sam. On the case.
All right. Let's see. Lucid Gravity. The order books open up November 7th, which let's see, that is Thursday of this week as we're recording. It's November 3rd right now. So a few days from now, you'll be able to place your order for a Lucid Gravity. And they announced the initial pricing. The Touring starts at $79,900, which makes it eligible for tax credit as long as you don't get any additional options on it.
Not a single extra thing.
Right.
Don't get all the things.
And the Grand Touring, which is actually the first one that will be available, is $94,900.
Oof.
And it will have more than 800 horsepower and over 440 miles of range.
I want one. I don't need one. I want one. Have I seen it? Have I driven it? No, I want it. That lack of logic that makes me want a VW bus, same thing that makes me want this.
I mean, you haven't driven the Wagoneer S yet either, and you ordered one of those, so.
I did. I can always change it. I mean,
well, you haven't gotten it yet, so.
I haven't gotten it yet, and I don't know when that's happening. It's not going to be, I think, next year. My guess is next year we might see one of these.
But
not the
which
Lucid.
time?
That'll come first.
You could get the Gravity.
I could have the Gravity before that. Yeah.
It didn't show up. Sorry, I got the Gravity instead.
And the Gravity will have more range.
Starting production late this year. Okay, so it's a bet. Which one do you think is going to be first? Do you think it'll be the Gravity or the Wagoneer S?
I think in terms of when actual retail customers get it,
yes,
because they actually have, looking at sales numbers, like we have a database that we use of sales numbers, and actually even if you just look at Stellantis's most recent their Q3 sales release, they actually delivered something like 74 Wagoneer S's in Q3. But
to regular people? No.
Well, no, that's what I was getting at. Those are almost certainly all Stellantis employees.
Yeah.
And that's not unusual to see, some small numbers, before they actually hit, retail sales. So I'm guessing that the Gravity might actually get to retail customers before the Wagoneer S.
It could.
That's crazy.
If the order book's open Monday, no, Wednesday.
Thursday.
Order book's open Thursday. Sorry, order book's
What is
open
time?
Thursday. What is time? I don't know. It's daylight
no meaning
savings,
anymore.
whatever. It's all everything's confused.
Everything's
Order
broken
book's
right now.
open Thursday. Production starts this year. I mean, has Lucid generally been deliver when they say they do? I mean, they're not Tesla. Tesla, you're like, who knows?
They've been
Like, have they been pretty?
They were pretty close with the Air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're
Okay.
pretty.
I love the Air. Oh, I love that car.
Yeah, me too.
It's such a good car. Yeah.
Should I get? I mean, but this one is a little bit more expensive than a Wagoneer S. Should I change my tune and go with the Gravity?
Well, maybe you can drive both of them beforehand.
I never get to drive. Well, I did drive a Lucid once, but yeah, I want to drive either one. I would drive it before I would actually hand over my money. I don't know now. Look how pretty this is. There's windmills in the back of the picture. How can this not be amazing?
And it has a frunk, and you can get a seat, a cushion that goes in the frunk, so you can front gate.
You can front gate. I mean, you can front gate. Yeah. I just want to be able. What are you doing? I'm front gating today.
Front gating.
I'm going to record a whole episode of the show from the front gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this. I really do like this. But I like Lucid, so I'm unsurprising that I love this.
Yeah, the cars are. You know what? I have a whole interview with. I should have brought this up. Peter Rawlinson, and we talked about efficiency. And one of the things we talked about during the video is the relationship of miles per kilowatt hour to miles per gallon. Because let's say your EV gets 5 miles per kilowatt hour, you can kind of just if your car gets 50 miles per gallon, that's good. So for both of those, so if you actually kind of look at those as sort of a relationship, if your car gets 2 miles per kilowatt hour and it gets and that's sort of in your brain, if you think that's 20 miles per gallon, then it sort of helps people sort of make that leap from the efficiency of a vehicle versus the efficiency of a gas car.
Because it is hard to, we all have a sense of understanding of what those miles per, okay, I get what 50 miles per gallon is. I get what 20 miles per gallon is. You're kilowatt hour per what? It's hard to understand.
Yeah, miles per kilowatt. So there's a whole video. I'll send you a link, Sam, and if people want to watch it, can. He sort of brings it up, and I'm like, oh, well, duh. It was one of those. There's a lot of when you sit down with Peter Rawlinson, he's sort of going through math and efficiency, and you're always like, oh, duh.
If Peter was our math teacher or science teacher in high school,
he'd be the
so many people would have done so much better.
Right?
He'd be the one that would actually have you come home feeling like you learned something.
Yeah,
despite your best efforts as a 15-year-old. You'd be like, I learned stuff today in science.
Yeah, he is so good at sort of explaining things in a way that just regular people will understand. That's why I was really excited about this interview. And they when I booked it, they're like, well, Peter wants to have a whiteboard, the white table where he can draw on. Because he does, so it's easier because you just write out and show the setup and stuff. And it was, but what was fun is I have a jib, which is just it's a tripod, but it has a long arm, and you can lift and you put something at the end of the arm, and you make it go up and down, and so it keeps the camera relatively stable and level, so you can do really cool shots. I don't use it very often because people aren't like, ooh, look at that jib shot, but I used it for this. I could put my phone over the table because I can get really tall, and so it wouldn't be in the shot. So we would have a camera shot of the table itself. So while he's drawing and teaching us all math, when I first put it on there, I put the sandbag on the wrong part, and it just started sliding down, and then started moving towards Peter. I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna kill the CEO of Lucid. And I was like, I'm like, hold on.
That's not how you want to go viral. I killed the CEO.
I didn't tighten one of the legs. It was a fun moment. It was like when I was in the Silver Pig, which is the red pig recreation that Mercedes has, and they let me drive it, and it was great because it's the red pig. They just recreated it, but with better brakes, but it doesn't have an e-brake. So we pulled over because the guy was like, oh, I'm going to pull out of this area with all these people, and then I'll let you drive it. And we got out to swap seats, and it just started rolling. While we were
Oh,
in the car,
gosh.
we're like, and we're trying to throw things behind it. We're like, oh my god, if we had lost this car. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Peter Rawlinson. I'll find the link and I'll send it to you, Sam.
Okay. All right. Hyundai Initium, I think that's how you pronounce it, concept. It's their next fuel cell vehicle, fuel cell crossover. What do you think of this?
Initium. I don't know how I feel about the name. Let's see.
Initium. It
Initium.
looks,
I mean, it looks cool. It looks super fancy, like very. I'll run you over if you don't get out of my way.
I love the new Aztec. That's what I love. And I mean,
you think it looks? Oh, dang!
There's been a lot of people online saying it looks like an Aztec.
But you know what?
I think it's better than an Aztec.
It's better though. It's like I love the new. That's why I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like it, the design. It's you can have a Porsche that sort of, and you can have a car that kind of looks like a Porsche, and the Porsche just looks 1,000 times better. Yeah. It's the little things. It's the just finishing off. And yes, it does kind of look like the Aztec, but I think it's cool.
Now that you say it, I didn't see that until you said it, but totally.
Sorry, I ruined. Once again, I've ruined something
it.
for what I ruined for you earlier
Robbie.
today.
I don't know. There was something else you ruined for me. It was a color that your wife thinks looks like bile.
Oh, bile. Yeah, the yellow one. Just ruining things.
Ruining Robbie.
No, I think it's cool. Hydrogen's bigger in Korea because it was government mandated to have it out. But it's good that is there a hydrogen infrastructure for passenger cars? No. In the United States, no, God, no. There's not really much you can drive around where I live, and that's pretty much it. But
are there fewer there? Even wasn't there some place that was hydrogen
shut down,
Shell closed down.
Yeah, that's stations. What I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it was mostly just like me and Antoine and any other like reviewer. There are some Mirais. I do see Mirais on a regular basis up here, but it's. You still want to keep working on that technology because I really think that long haul trucking is going to be where hydrogen makes sense, and then as those corridors are built out, then you're going to get a little bit of a spider web effect. And I think in the future a big F-250 Super Duty, if you can have that on hydrogen and you live near a major corridor, that's a kind of pretty good way to get around if you're concerned about battery and you don't want to like get a series plug-in hybrid. So,
and
it's a thing that everyone should keep doing, but I don't think you're going to go out and buy one. Hydrogen.
Supposedly this previews Hyundai's next generation design language, which they're calling Art of Steel.
Art of Steel?
So this is apparently what the next generation of Hyundais are going to look like.
I mean, it looks cool, but why is it the Art of Steel? Is it because we got fancy with the metal?
I don't know.
It's steel, and they're making art. Art of Steel.
The Art of Steel.
Okay.
I mean,
I like it.
All right.
I
don't feel like I know what to do with that any more than I did with the press release that was 3 paragraphs of nothing for the Cadillac. I'm confused.
It's like Neue Class. Like, what's Neue Class?
What does that mean?
It literally means new class.
New class. Like,
okay.
what?
What? What's that? Okay, fine. But no, I mean, if you have a little, the next Ioniq 5 looks a little bit more like this. It looks even more like a 70s or an 80s or 90s hatchback that's ready for some rallycross. Then sure. Everyone's just recreating rally cars from the 80s and 90s. That's all.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
there was a lot of cool rally cars in the 80s.
There were
those Group B machines. Oh, they were something special.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right. So how about the Kia Tasman?
Tasman. The
I love
Bollinger.
the Tasman. I'm excited.
Remember the Bollinger?
I like it.
You can actually buy this. I mean, not here.
Well, yeah, you can't buy it in America.
But this is the Bollinger, but you can buy it.
This is like the worst tease. Like, you guys, look at this really cool truck. Like,
super psyched.
If you live in Australia or Korea, you can get it.
Is this a reason to go to Australia? No, because they have spiders the size of dinner plates. So I don't want to go there.
In the Tasman, you're safe.
but I
That's
want
the
the
whole-
Tasman.
You
What if
could
I
be in
ordered
the
one?
Tasman
What would
and
happen? Just run them over? Does it have the ground clearance? No.
but you're safe inside the Tasman.
So
But I'm safe inside it.
I mean, the reason we can't get it is the chicken tax.
Yeah. Thanks for the sound effect.
I do what I can.
It's an interesting design. I'll give it that.
It's the Bollinger.
You're not keen on it? You don't like it?
I'm not crazy
No?
about it.
Not crazy about it.
It's weird.
Oh.
I like weird.
Yeah,
It's weird.
it's
Wow,
definitely
that's not
weird.
even
Here's the thing. It's weird and buildable, unlike, say, the Cybertruck, which is weird and incredibly difficult to build.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's truck shaped. So the
You can do
things that
truck
you would
things.
the things that you would do with a pickup truck, you can do with a Tasman.
Tasman.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tasman.
I think one thing that was interesting, those black plastic things over the wheel arches are actually storage boxes.
They're a
You
little
can-
odd.
Yeah. So, unlike the Ram box.
Are they
on the
really?
Yeah. Unlike the Ram box, which has the boxes along the top edge of the bed on either side. These are above the wheel arches, which seems an odd choice because, I mean, they can't be that deep. So you're not going to be able to put anything very big in them.
You can put like
Where do you
your
access them from?
you can
They're-
put things in like to kill spiders.
There you go.
Giant
Have your spider swatter.
giant
spider killing
reptiles.
spider swatter. It's going to be a spider sledgehammer living there.
Look at the interior shots that they have. Like the door handle is really cool. Like they have the it has like almost like the F-150 where you can have that little flat workspace in the front, and there's a little
Table.
there's a little drawing of the truck with like it's like how tall it is and how long, like its wheelbase and how wide it is. So when you're driving along, you're like, oh, are we gonna fit under this? And that's my Australian accent. And then you look down and you're like,
Sorry.
we're gonna be great.
Yeah, I mean the interior is really nice on this thing. I think the interior works much better than the exterior.
Yeah.
And it has a cookie table.
It's got the cookie table.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's got a cookie table. How could
That's
you
the
not
winner.
like this?
Yeah.
I want to know if we need dimensions. Is it a bigger cookie table? Can it hold more cookies?
You can put a lot
than
of
an
cookies on there.
F-150?
Oh, I don't know. You have to go to
Really good.
Australia and test it, or Korea.
Spiders.
I think it's Korea. You don't have so many spiders in Korea.
That's true.
That's true.
But you can only
That's
drive
true.
like
You go to
you can only drive
Korea.
like 30 miles an hour in Korea, though. Everything, all the speed limits. Like when we drove the Kia Soul EV that they were going to bring, but then they didn't because they didn't have enough batteries. I was with Scotty Reeves, and we're on like a back road, and the top speed was 30 kilometers an hour. It's like 18 miles an hour. I'm like, Scotty, I'm going to go faster than this. You're cool with that?
Are you okay with me breaking that rocking speed limit?
Switchbacks, and it's still a Kia Soul, so it's not a race car, but it had like switchbacks, and it was down a hill, and I was like, really? We're going to 18 miles an hour, huh? All right.
So yeah, I mean the interior, they clearly, benchmarked an F-150, and combine that with some elements of Kia design. So you've got the the cookie table. There's a storage bin underneath the back seat that you fold up the back seat. There's a nice big storage bin down there. Lots of other features. So yeah, I mean I think the interior makes a lot of sense, but.
In the bed, they have a little cutout for a plank of wood, just like the Maverick. There.
Oh yeah, on top of the wheel arches there. Yeah.
Oh wow! Look at this one.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at these pictures all day. You guys continue the podcast. I'm going to keep looking at pictures.
He's gonna look at pictures.
And you can get it. You can get it as a chassis cab.
Yeah.
So TechCrunch had their Disrupt conference this week in San Francisco, and one of the people there was Wassim Ben Sayed, who is the chief software officer at Rivian. And I spoke with Wassim back in June or July when they had an event here at their tech center in Plymouth, Michigan, to talk about their new software platform and electrical architecture. And during the interview that he did with Kirsten Korosek, he referred to in-car buttons as an anomaly.
This is just a software guy trying to keep his job.
Yeah.
He's just trying to make me angry.
There's plenty of software to do.
A software guy trying to keep his job.
He's just trying to keep his job. And also, like, he talks about AI, and I signed up for Disrupt. I ended up not going. I couldn't make it after all. But like every pitch, I got 1,000 pitches about AI. That's all Disrupt was like AI this, AI that, AI this. So then he goes up, he's like AI powered voice controls, and we're like, sure, why not? I mean, you're just on brand with that audience.
Yeah.
I'm gonna email be like, hey, make sure you don't take those buttons away. If you have a Rivian,
I already said that to him. I already said that to him in July when I saw him. I said, you need to put buttons back in there, and he said, no, not going to happen.
He's not going to do it with his. I love Rivian, but those stupid vents are.
Yeah, I told him that the touchscreen controlled vents are a stupid idea, and they need to get
ridiculous. Did he have a response to that? Specifically the vents.
He said, we disagree. We think this is a better solution, and he's wrong. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the guy, but that doesn't mean I can't disagree with him, and I can't disagree more than touchscreen controlled vents.
The fact that when Scout was like, hey, look at all the buttons we put in there. Not everything's
and I think that's why he said
and
this.
The entire internet lost their mind about yay buttons. And then he's like, nah.
You think with everyone saying, oh my gosh, it's so nice to have buttons, that they might be like, maybe a few things need buttons. Maybe.
It's not. Yeah,
he wants to get rid of all the buttons.
Well, it's cheaper, to be honest.
It is, and that's what I said online this week. Somebody asked, it's like, why are they doing this? And I said, it's cheap. It costs a lot of money to engineer and validate and assemble a system with buttons and switches. It does add a significant amount of cost. The only ones who benefit from getting rid of the buttons and going to all touch controls are the automakers. There is zero consumer benefit to this. The automakers benefit by cutting cost. We lose.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
100%.
Buttons. That's why they Scouts. I'm like, well, they got buttons. I mean, I like the Rivians, but they got buttons.
Yeah.
Love me some buttons.
Yeah. Rivian's got the gear tunnel. Scout's got the buttons. Which one are you going to go for? Gear tunnel or buttons?
I like the buttons. That's tough. I have to drive the Scout. That's where it comes.
Yeah, I think ask us again after we drive it.
Yeah, I do love the gear tunnel because I can just throw things in it and not worry about it disappearing. But yeah.
All right. If you have a Tesla and you have the FSD software, please don't use it at night. In fact, just don't use it at all, but especially don't use it at night. The drive has a story and a video from a Tesla driver, Model 3, showing his car on FSD, just running straight into a deer, not braking, not trying to avoid it, just not even slowing down after hitting it, just running down a deer. And, this is why a camera only system for automated driving is a terrible, terrible idea. You need to have active sensors that can actually see stuff in the dark and in fog and, know how far away stuff is. This deer was just standing there in the middle of the road. And just the car didn't even slow down.
Yeah.
I wish they kept the video going to see how it stops the instant it's hit. Which is terrible that it goes. But I'm surprised that it didn't try to do something. Does it realize it hit? It seems like it didn't even realize it.
Yeah, it just kept going.
Yeah, it didn't even slow down after it hit it.
Wow.
That's a bummer.
But also the driver, it does go to your point, Sam, that the driver needs to be paying attention.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Any of these, any system, none of them are driverless. You all need to pay attention because it doesn't look like, and again, we don't see the full, it doesn't continue after the deer was hit and is off camera, but the guy doesn't attempt to slow down at all either. The person doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? The human behind the wheel. And you see it for a second, we see it, he must have seen it. So that just pay attention. The car doesn't do everything. Pay attention.
Yeah. All right. Finally, the Ferrari Enzo. I had never noticed this before until I saw this article this week. But the mirrors on the Ferrari Enzo, which is a car that came out over 20 years ago, are different sizes on the driver's side and the passenger side. The passenger side one is considerably smaller than the one on the driver's side. It's about 30% smaller. And reading this, turns out that the reason why they did this is because where the pillars are on the Enzo, the mirrors are actually mounted on the fenders, on the front fenders, and where the pillars are. If they had made the passenger side mirror the same size, about 1/3 of it would not be visible anyway because it would be obscured by the A pillar. So Ferrari said, well, if you can't see that part of the mirror anyway, we might as well just make it smaller and have a little bit less aerodynamic drag. Yeah. And so they made it smaller. So you got asymmetric mirrors. And it got me thinking, remembering back in the early 90s, my first job after college when I was working for what was then Delco Moraine on ABS. One of the cars I worked on was the Lotus Esprit. And first time I got into an Esprit to drive it, one of the things I noticed was the mirror on the passenger side. Where the Esprit, the A pillar didn't block it, but there's it has kind of vent windows in the doors, and so the pillar, the frame of the vent window actually cut right through the middle of the mirror. So your view of the passenger side mirror was obscured by this frame of the window. And it's like, oh yeah, Lotus could have done the same thing, 40 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
but they didn't.
We're like, whatever. Yeah, you don't need to see what's behind you. You're in a Lotus.
That's right. All right, we got some listener questions. Let's tackle those. First up from Scott. Not so much a question. He just wrote in to let us know. Just want to let you know that there is a pretty big new Tesla dealer service center coming very soon to the Detroit area. So if you're in Southeast Michigan, they've been working on this for quite some time, but I think it'll open soon. It's on Orchard Lake Road. So this is in Farmington Hills, I think. Farmington Hills, or might be West Bloomfield. Orchard Lake Road between 14 and 15 mile. West Bloomfield. If I'd read the next line. So if you're in this area and you need service, Tesla still can't legally sell cars in Michigan. So they'll probably have some vehicles on display that you can go and look at, maybe even test drive, but you'll have to go online if you actually want to purchase one. But if you need service, they will apparently have a service center there. So hopefully that will reduce some of the wait times, because the guy who hit the deer, the earliest he could get a service appointment was January. So hopefully they're opening up more service facilities.
Good news if you live in Detroit.
Yeah. Yep. John has a pretty long one here. Says, hi all. A while ago, you asked listeners to point out dealerships that were charging additional dealer markups, and you would call them out on it. We love to shame bad dealers. I wanted to point your attention to a slightly different problem with dealerships, and it has to do with their service departments and how they intend to rip off customers in a new way, especially since EVs need much less maintenance. A local dealership that I had nothing but great experiences with was last year sold to a larger dealership chain. Please note that I have bought cars here for over 30 years and was, with the emphasis on was, a loyal customer. I also regularly used their service department, where I knew a lot of the mechanics and technicians over the years, many of whom seem to now be gone with the new ownership. A couple of months ago, my F-150 Lightning needed the recommended 40,000-mile service. This consists basically of a tire rotation, multi-point inspection, and washer fluid. Before the dealership change, I think I paid about $35 for this service. I pulled in, and the tech, who I had never met before, came up to me and asked me to sign the estimate of service. $435. I literally started laughing at him. I asked him, what are you going to do for $435? Well, air conditioning, sanitation, and purification, new wiper blades, change the brake fluid, replace the air filter, rotate the tires, and a multi-point inspection. I told him no way. He proceeded to tell me that for $200 less, they could remove the air conditioning, sanitation, I wonder if this consists of spraying Lysol in the vents. I proceeded to tell him all I wanted was a tire rotation, multi-point inspection, and washer fluid filled. He reluctantly agreed, and I ended up paying about $45. I won't be back. The problem is, had this been my wife, daughter, or son, they may have agreed to this nonsense, thinking the service department knows best. Dealerships never.
I'm sorry. Okay. Go on.
Dealerships never cease to amaze me with their creativity to fleece customers. Now with EVs that need limited maintenance, their creativity is reaching new levels. This was Deal Ford in Massillon, Ohio. They have now lost a loyal customer that they had for decades.
That is, and what he said is exactly the problem. He knew enough to say, I'm not paying for all that garbage. That's not what I need to do. But if you don't know, you're okay, maybe this is stuff you need to do on an EV and this is how much it costs. It's so dishonest.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
Change okay. Like air conditioning.
Sanitize the air conditioning?
I mean, if you're driving in and out of forest fires, I guess, at 40,000 miles, change the brake fluid. At 40,000 miles. Come on.
Really?
Come on.
This is bad. It's bad.
No.
I've had multiple cars that have driven over 100,000 miles. I've never had to replace brake fluid. Not once.
There's never been a time where I got to pull out the
I checked the brake
time.
I checked the brake fluid.
Cylinder goes bad.
Yeah.
You're like, it's fine.
Right. You don't need to. Yeah.
I mean, your brake fluid should generally be like a goldish color, and if it starts looking black, then it's it's getting contaminated. Then you want to, it's getting water. It's absorbing moisture from the atmosphere, and then you need to replace it. You need to flush your brake fluid and replace it. And actually, I'm taking the Miata into the shop tomorrow because my brake fluid actually looks great, but the clutch cylinder, which actually uses brake fluid to engage the clutch, that fluid is actually black. And last week when I was driving it, I couldn't get the clutch to completely disengage unless I pumped it a couple of times. And
what year is your Miata?
It is now 35 years old.
There you go. So
yeah, that's 35 years.
Man,
Yeah,
I went to a dealership. So we used to have a CRV, but it was the one without real-time all-wheel drive. So it just had, it was just front-wheel drive. And I went and we were doing. They're like, oh. And the guy came out. He's like, "Yeah, we need to service your rear differential." I'm like, "Do you now?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, it's only front wheel drive, right?" He's like, "I'm like, it's not a real. What are you gonna do to the rear differential for a vehicle that doesn't have the drivetrain going to the powertrain?" He's just like, "All right, yeah, let me take that off the thing," and then he walked away.
Well, I also like replacing the air filter on the Lightning. What air filter?
You got to replace all the things.
Oh my gosh!
So, Deal Ford in Massillon, Ohio. Shame on you. If you're in Massillon, go find another dealer to take your cars to. And
that's unfortunate, especially this person's been going there for decades, and now they're like, "Nope."
I know, they lost a customer and lost a lot more because that he's told every single person he knows it's local, don't go there for your Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next up from Victor, low wheel bearings. Like most males between the ages of puberty and dementia, I spend an inordinate amount of time researching and pricing out cars I do not need or could barely afford. Currently, I have no need for a premium or luxury vehicle. Do any of us really? I work remote, take my 05 Corolla to the gym, and use my 06 Sierra for farm duty and northern trips. However, things could change. And if I had to commute 100 kilometers to Toronto and back, that's about 60 miles for all of you that only know Freedom units. I would entertain getting a nice sedan or crossover for the commute. My question is, what manufacturer currently offers the highest level of quality control? When I buy something at this level, I expect everything to be spot on, working as it should, and have very little issues over the first 3 to 5 years of ownership. I hate going to the dealers for warranty work, but appreciate a good service network if needed. Brands I would be interested in are Audi, BMW, Genesis, Lexus, Mercedes, and Porsche. Thanks, and keep up the good work.
Genesis.
Yeah. From that list? Genesis.
I think, the thing with the the Audis, the BMW, all these other vehicles, Lexus, Porsche. I love all those. There's a lot of cars that I love in those lineups, but also I know I can't afford to fix a BMW, an Audi, a Mercedes. Sure, I could buy
Right?
one, but could I
You might,
maintain it?
Yeah.
And quality
not with the
control
prices that one dealer
across
charged.
the board, quality control for most, in most automakers has risen exponentially. It's been,
Yeah.
manufacturing has become so much better than it used to be. That said, Genesis.
Yeah. I would agree.
I would agree for all of the reasons you just said. Even if you can afford to buy the Porsche, the Mercedes, can you fix it?
Maybe the Lexus.
Maybe Lexus because it's Toyota. Yeah, maybe Lexus. So Genesis, Lexus, one of those.
Yeah.
But the others I love. But if I was really worried about not having to spend a lot and put a ton of miles on it, not the other guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, driving Audis, BMWs, Mercedes, Porsches, great. But when it does come time that you actually have to pay for service can be really expensive. Parts can be really expensive for all of those.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive for all new vehicles, but especially for for European premium vehicles, it gets really expensive really fast.
Whenever I try to work on it, we used to have a Mini Countryman, the L4. And whenever I wanted to work on it, I always had to go out and buy another tool. Like, like it was like,
Another
so I
tool.
had the 12 point instead of like the 12 point socket for the spark plugs. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go swap out the spark plugs in the Mini. I'm down there with my spark plug, your special little spark plug socket
with the rubber thing in there, so you don't crack the ceramic insulator.
And so I'm just turning and I'm like, this isn't catching. What is going on? And I'm like looking in, and I shine a light. I'm like, oh, come on.
Did it actually have a 12-point thing? 12-point thing on the spark plug?
Yes.
I have never seen that.
I think I had to go to Lowe's and get the tool. I had to get, and then it was the same sort of thing. Like it was like a Torx like star to adjust like the lights or pull the lights off or some other thing, which is something I had. But your average like sort of DIY person, like, oh, I got Phillips head and straight head, and it's just like all these little itty bitty things. It's sort of like, oh, hey, maybe you should take this to the dealership. And it was very weird. And it apparently the what they have for oil changes is they have a plastic nut or bolt to let the oil out, in case so it won't ever strip the oil pan, I guess. So we took it to like the Jiffy Lube, and they're like, yeah, we don't really do these because if it breaks or strips or whatever, then we have to go to the BMW dealership. And so I started going to the Mini dealership, which actually was fine. They charged me actually less, and they washed the car, and they were great. They were a great little service center, the Mini service center in San Francisco. I don't know, 10 years ago, who knows now. But everything was like, it was like every time I wanted to like work on our Mini, I was like, well, I've got to go to Lowe's and buy another tool.
All right. Last question for this week. Mark says, greetings to the WB Brain Trust. I'm looking into moving up from my 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee 5.7 liter to a new BMW X5 M60i next year.
Ooh.
Since I typically keep my cars for several years, the approximate $100,000 price doesn't bother me. Some of my previous rides were an interesting collection here. Were a few Buick Grand Nationals. I bought new. Yes, I'm old. A 92 GMC Typhoon, Shelby Dakota, and other cars with good acceleration.
I am so jealous about the Grand Nationals, to be honest.
Right?
I wanted a Grand National like my entire life.
And acceleration is about the only thing those cars were good for. Braking, changing direction, not good.
I love the Grand National so much.
Anyway, I value your opinions to the point that I just became a paying Patreon member. Thank you so much, Mark.
Yay.
We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
All I see in YouTube reviews are positives, but no car is perfect. Do you have any negatives? Presumably this is about the X5 M60. I'm recently retired, and this would be a grocery getter and see minimal use and maybe the occasional road trip. Much appreciated, Mark. So what do you think?
I like the X5 M60. I think it's a mighty powerful machine that's still comfortable. I've driven it a few times, I think, at this point. Um, yeah, no, the X5 is actually a really, it's sort of just bulletproof standard, just like here's the big BMW SUV. It's like that. It's sort of like that middle of the road. It's going to be fine. You're going to be happy. The end. It's and when you go to
M60 is the 4.4 liter V8, right? The twin turbo V8.
So, yeah. But it's going to eat a lot of gasoline because
but he's not. But he says it's like going to be a grocery getter. He doesn't care. Grocery getter. He's recently retired, minimally. So it's not like the fuel economy is a huge big deal. So the drawback to that would be that, and it's like, well, it's not going to be much of a drawback for him.
It's I really liked. You know what? I haven't driven the X5 in a while, but I really liked it. And I'm not a big SUV guy, like personally, but when you get in it and you're like, oh yeah, this is solid as a rock. I think you're gonna be happy, especially considering the vehicles you got. This will handle much better than those Grand Nationals.
Oh yes, it will change direction. It'll stop.
The Typhoon, man. We tried to get one of my friends' dads to buy a Typhoon. When they were new, we're like, hey, like we were in high school. We're like, he was gonna get just a regular like Blazer, and we're like, you gotta got your dad and get the Typhoon. You gotta get the Typhoon.
When I was working at the GM Proving Grounds, working at Dalco, the Typhoon had just come out. It had just been announced, and somebody brought one over from the GMC garage, and a bunch of us took it out for a drive around the Proving Grounds. And yeah, it was wicked fast in a straight line, but turning, the brakes were horrendous. They were really, really bad. And it's not something I would actually want to own.
My friend ended up getting just the regular Jimmy. And within a month, from a small town, there's mountains, there's deer. He was going around one of the back roads, and there was a deer in the road, and he swerved, and he went off the road and rolled it. So he would have rolled the Typhoon, is what would have happened. But instead, he just rolled a regular old Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the X5 M60, 523 horsepower. It is actually rated at 22 miles per gallon, so it's actually not terrible.
Bad.
Depends on how much you use that 523 horsepower.
I feel like the biggest drawbacks to this car are literally that it is an expensive vehicle. It's not cheap, but it's a performance BMW, and that the fuel economy isn't like something to write home about. But if you don't care about those two things, and it sounds like performance is your priority, you're not going to care. I mean, drive it, and if I would say drive it and see, make sure it's comfy, all that good stuff.
Check the seats. I think there's a couple different seats for that. I can't remember.
Yeah, so because sometimes those sportier seats can be. Depending on your frame, literally a tall guy, a short guy, whether you're broad shoulders or not, make sure you're comfy in it. Just make sure you like sitting in it. Like take it for a decent little test drive. And as long as the seats are comfy, I would buy it. I like it.
The insane sports seats that BMW sells for everything, like I think the person they model those on is like the same size as me. So I'm like, oh, these are just these are nice and comfortable. But the rest of the world's like, what are you making me sit in?
Yeah, I think those are only available in the X5M competition.
Okay, so
the M60 doesn't get the crazy seats. It just gets
which are
really good seats.
They're really good. They do have a decent amount of bolstering though. So, and I find sometimes like heavily bolstered seats, I either love them or hate them. You know what I mean? Depending on, and it's just how it fits me. So give it a solid drive.
And they are adjustable.
You like how the seats are.
So,
right. Yeah.
But and as we've said before many times, this applies to any car. Make sure you take it for a test drive. Make sure the seat does fit you. And then aside from what we just said, to Vic's question, about service costs and parts costs, that's where they're going to get that's potentially going to be an issue down the road, especially if you don't drive it very much. That could end up being an issue, a few years down the road, but, otherwise, it should be fine. There shouldn't be any real problems with it. It probably will, go through tires, fairly quickly. just because of all the power and torque that it's got. So, it'll probably cost you a bunch in tires. But other than that, the X5 as a vehicle is a solid vehicle.
Good choice.
Yeah. And, anybody else has got questions, feedback at wheelbearings.media. We love to answer them. So please send them in. And, if you want to record them, we will play the audio and use that. So just, send us an audio file or a link to an audio file, and we'll use that too.
I need the address for the gentleman who sent us a sea shanty, because I still have to send them. You have to send me just something random in my office, because I think I've
got it somewhere in the email. I'll find it for you.
So sea shanty gentleman, you're still going to get something ridiculous from me.
Okay. All right. Thanks everybody, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.